Welcome, everyone, to In Other Worlds, the Lit RPG, Game Lit, and Fantasy podcast. I'm your host, Jess, and today we have on Edie Skye. Edie, how are you?
Doing very well. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. So, you write under several pen names. You've got HP Hollow, which does a lot of your non spicy harem books, but you do have Monster Punk Horizon, which I have not read, but I think might be spicy.
Nope, the everything under the HP Hollow pen name is non-spicy, non-harem. Edie Skye is where all the fun is.
That's the after 10 p.m. pen
Yes.
name. So under Edie Skye, you have Blood Knight, Titan Mage, the Monster Girl Tamer series, and then Cat Girls from Outer Space is your newest.
Yep.
So give us kind of a rundown on Cat Girls from Outer Space.
Oh, goodness. Cat Girls from Outer Space actually has an interesting story. Well, of course it does because I wrote it. But there's an interesting story behind the story. So this one is actually a formal collaboration between me and my husband, Jacob Hollow. And ultimately, it is a space adventure that's kind of like imagine if you threw Firefly and Farscape and Outlaw Star and Cowboy Bebop into a blender and just put more cat girls in it. It's that kind of adventure with a little bit more cosmic horror thrown in the mix too. Very far future, very fun stuff. The thing that makes this one particularly interesting, though, is this is actually a re-release. Freelancers of Neptune, if you can still find it, it's still available in print. Does not have spicy scenes in it. Catgirls from Outer Space was at least 20 to 30% rewritten to fit the harem genre. And so you're going to get something of a different book if you read Catgirls from Outer Space. But for once, you have a selection between the spicy and the non-spicy version of the story
Yeah,
with this
and
one.
all of those things in a blender with Cat Girls thrown in, you really can't go
Oh,
wrong.
yeah.
You
Oh,
can't go wrong with
absolutely.
any
You
of
can't
those.
go wrong with Catgirls to begin with.
Right.
You
Never.
can absolutely tell that
Never.
I grew up on anime.
So so the only one that I have read so far is Monster Girl Tamer. I do have Titan Mage and Cat Girls from Outer Space. They are on my TBR. Monster Girl Tamer was incredibly cute.
Oh, really?
The it was such a good story, and it didn't take itself too seriously.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
the
Very
harem
much
is
so.
very tongue in cheek. It kind of makes fun of itself sometimes,
Oh, yeah.
and
That's
I
one of
love
the
that about it.
that's one of the things that I absolutely love about harem too, because the thing is, I love writing fun, nonsensical stories. I'll throw some seriousness in as well. There's this fine balance that you can strike. But because harem is by its nature a kind of absurd concept, it literally the
Yeah.
readers are a lot more open to silly concepts. And
Mhm.
that makes it a lot more like you can do some really, really crazy things in it.
Yeah, I mean, I've read some that try to take itself way too seriously, and it's just not as good.
Yeah, I
It's
don't
not as
enjoy it
fun to
nearly as
read.
much.
I ended up
Yeah.
getting angry at the main character. I couldn't even finish it. I just couldn't even finish it. I was so mad at the characters that I was just done. But this is very like the ones that are tongue in cheek and don't take themselves too seriously are just
Mhm.
the absolute best.
And I will say that Monster Girl Tamer is definitely my wildest, most comedic one. The other ones strike this really fine balance of serious, straightforward storytelling with
Mhm.
some absurdity thrown in at just the right moments.
Yeah.
And, uh, and it's a hard balance to strike sometimes, but it really works when it does.
It was wild. It's wild. So, what made you choose to write as a female author in men's romance harem? Because I haven't. Harem is something that I've just started kind of getting into, and so
Then
I don't know if there are a ton of female authors in
there
the
are
harem
It's it's
genre.
definitely it's definitely male dominated, but you do have a significant crew of female authors. There's Anya Merchant, there's Eden Red, there's Misty Vixen. There's one who has just fallen right out of my head now, and I'll remember it later. But Freya Stone, my one of
Mm.
my audiobook narrators just released her first harem novel. And
Oh,
yeah, Freya Stone's Dragonbound, which my husband says is the best harem novel he's ever read. So everybody go read Dragonbound. She
I'm
wrote
gonna
it with
add that one
Freehan
to my
Willis.
TBR too.
But as far as how I got started, that's another story in and of itself. And so my husband and I have been self-publishing for about 10 years at this point.
Mhm.
And the Edie Skye pen name though is only about 3 years old. And one of his series, well, let me back up again. I do writing, but I also handle all of our marketing. And so one of the things I'll do is go research his books, how they're performing on Amazon, what the also bots are. And he has one particular series called the Seraphim Revival, which is a giant robot series. Non-spicy, really straightforward. But I was looking in the also bots, and I kept seeing also bots being like people who bought this book also bought on Amazon, for
Mhm.
those who don't know. And I was seeing all these really like hot boobalicious covers, and I'm like,
What
these
does
have
that have
nothing
to
in
do with it?
common with this series. Like, why are people buying this? Or why are the same audiences buying this? And so, out of eventually I just saw so many of them that eventually I just bought some and started checking them out. And my husband comes up to my computer screen and he sees all of these like titty covers on my screen. He's like, "Hey, what you doing?" And one conclusion that we come to is that there's probably an untapped market, and
Mhm.
we reasoned that the audience. One of the things that it implied was that the audience that enjoys giant robots probably also enjoys boobs, and and so we were like, you know what? Why don't we try writing a giant robot harem book? And so I read a bunch of harem books to try to get a feel for the genre, because each genre has its own little standards, and it was something I wasn't really familiar with at that point. And I discovered that even though it is not directed at me, I really, really liked its tropes because it's
Mhm.
very, very straightforward, pulpy, fun adventure. And the
Yeah.
thing is, at that time, I had never really enjoyed women's romance because women's romance it tends to be a lot more twisty, turny, dramatic, and it's like if I just had a dramatic day with my husband, I don't want to go read a women's romance where everything is dramatic. I want simple romance.
Yeah. It's
And
also wild.
oh, yeah, and I found some women's romances that I do enjoy, and in fact, I literally just launched a women's romance pen name Monday. So so we've got the Arcadia Sky pen name with Into the Arms of the Demon that is up for pre-order now.
Fantastic.
That's a whole other story. But at that time, the thing that really landed with me about harem, about men's romance, was that the romances were equally as important as the adventure. And I was there for the adventure. I loved the absurdity and the sheer heroism of the adventure, and I liked the way that the main character interacted with his women because the women were supports in the adventure. They were all in it together. And I really, really liked that dynamic. And
Mhm.
plus it's just fun. Like it's a genre that at its best doesn't take itself too seriously, and so it's really easy to relax to.
Yeah. Yeah. Were there any challenges, uh, when you started writing in the male romance genre?
There were certain bits of logic I had to get used to. See, one thing, I've always gravitated toward writing male characters. I've never really had any issues writing male characters, but occasionally I would fall into bits where the male character would be a little too passive, relative to what
Mm.
male readers want to read. And
Mhm.
I was viewing it as him being, introspective or cautious. But the thing is, male readers generally want their heroes to be hyper competent and they want them to get everything right. They want them to be a sort of figure you can look up to, rather
Yeah.
than someone who makes lots of mistakes. And that's counterintuitive for someone who comes from a different genre because generally you want your character to have significant struggles that they have to overcome. But that harem just doesn't have that same logic. Harem is ultimately escapism. And so there were certain genre things I had to get used to, and then, but anytime I had a character who or a main character who wasn't acting like a dude, I had my husband going through, and he'd be like, "This is how you need to do this," and so he was my dude advisor. Uh,
That's that's a good thing to have.
oh yeah, and technically, like we say the Edie Skye pen name is mine. To a certain extent, it's very collaborative, because I'm a skilled writer. I'm not very good at plotting, whereas my husband is
Mm.
a professional project manager, and he is very good at outlining and keeping up with lore. And so the two of us actually, before I even wrote Titan Mage, which was my first one, we sat down, we collaborated on the world building together. He wrote the outlines, and he wrote the first, I want to say, 2 or 3 chapters, because at that time he had actually read more harem than me, so he was more familiar with the genre. We both
Mhm.
started reading at the same time, but I'm just a slower reader. And then he gave me those 3 chapters. I had caught up on my harem reading, and he was like, "Go ham." Just and so from about chapter 3 on, I took over the primary writing. And all of our series under this pen name have been collaborative, to a certain extent. Some have been, the way in which they have been collaborative always changes. For example, in Blood Knight, I participated more in the planning, and Jacob did most of the writing because I was working on the Monster Girl Tamer series at that time.
Mm.
And I was initially slated to write Blood Knight, but he had a space between contracts, a space between traditional contracts, and he was like, "Well, I don't wanna wait 6 months and just waste 6 months. Can I just write this? Because I wanna try my hand at writing it." And so he took the lead on Blood Knight and had a whole lot of fun. Mm.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can imagine that, having your husband who can kinda look over that and be like,
Oh, yeah.
"Well, maybe just change this a little bit," because it's very different from your traditional fantasy lit RPG to harem, because we do in the traditional stories, we want that growth and we don't want that
Mhm.
overpowered MC, but in harem, they're not allowed to make mistakes.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
can't they can't stumble and fall.
and I try to straddle the line between that, because the thing is, when you have a hero who succeeds all the time, it gets boring.
Mhm.
And that is a real problem in some harem stories. And so I have this structure where I the main character always thinks he's making the right decision, and sometimes he will struggle. But by the end of the scene, he's always won somehow. And so that is kind of my way of balancing it. He never outright loses unless I have a moment where I'm establishing, like, here is the big bad.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I liked about Monster Girl Tamer is he wasn't the only one, like, just protecting his harem, and he
Mhm,
wasn't just this all-powerful guy. He relied
mhm,
on the monster girls in his
mhm.
harem to also help fight and do their part, and he didn't always win.
Mhm. And that's honestly the theme of cooperation is a theme that runs through all of my stuff, actually, because it's like, obviously harem is male self-insert fantasy,
Mhm.
and it's meant to be glorifying of the male character. But I some of the harems I read early on, I didn't like how the women were basically cardboard cutouts who didn't really contribute that much to the story other than sex.
Yeah.
All of my novels are structured around how they help each other somehow. And if you look at Titan Mage, for example, each novel in that series is structured after a problem that a specific girl in the harem has, and Locke, the main character, helps her through that specific problem, and then she eventually supports him. Blood Knight is a bit more obvious, obvious is not the right word, but a bit more intense about that, in that Clark, the main character, his magic is directly derived from the strength of his relationships with them, with his harem. And then of course you have Axel, where the strength is derived from the monster girl's various stats and the way they interact with him. And so it's
The way that they help him power up, man. That's whoo.
intimate in more ways than one.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds good.
And that's one of the funny things about Monster Girl Tamer in particular, because my readers had been asking me to write a lit RPG. And I one of my favorite things about writing in this genre, I love the genre, and I love genre tropes, and I really
Mhm.
love to have a lot of fun with the tropes, both bending them and taking them to their heights and whatnot. And so when I knew that I was gonna be writing a lit RPG, I was like, "I absolutely have to have stats play some kinda role in these sex scenes."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it happens more in the second one than the first one. But it was just it was one of the most fun parts of the novel was figuring out how to fit that element, just inextricably into the series.
When you're writing out the books and you are coming up with the characters that are going to be in the harem, how do you develop their unique personalities so that they aren't all just kind of cookie cutter the same.
I am one of those authors where I honestly don't plan characters all that much. Now one thing about it too is that given in the kind of genre that harem is,
Mhm.
there are certain not rules you have to follow, even though there are, but there are certain tropes that just feel natural. There are certain like different. One of the big benefits of harem is that you can basically fit in all the types. So you can have the regal girl, you can have the sassy girl, you can
Mhm.
have this, that, and the other. Um, so I do kind of try to work within those tropes. It's like, okay, here's the classy one. I already have a classy one, therefore this one needs to be the skanky one. Or it's
Right.
stuff
Yeah.
like that. But once the characters after that just kind of pop into my head and develop their own characteristics. And I've always described myself as well. There's a meme where it's like I don't plan so much as watch my characters do stuff inside my head and then write the incident report. That's kind of how it feels. Like my characters feel like living entities in my head to the point where sometimes if a scene is not working, the
Mhm.
character will be in the back of my head saying, "Well, it's not working because that's not what I would do." And
Okay.
and
Okay.
so and it's a funny little thing. Like, if I were not a writer, I would sound insane when I talk about some of these characters. Um,
Yeah.
but but yeah, in harem is also action adventure, and action adventure is a very trope heavy genre in and of itself.
Mhm.
And so one of the things that I do when I'm writing is I always try to write with respect to the genre that I'm writing in.
When you when you guys are building these worlds for your stories, how does the harem aspect affect your world building? Are there certain like world buildings settings that you try to follow because of the harem?
We always try to make the harem somehow integral to the story because, well, one piece of criticism that always comes up for spicy literature is like someone who is not looking for a spicy story will come up and say this sex scene was totally unnecessary to the story. And I mean, I don't say that to condescend to people who like clean literature. I mean, it's a
Right.
separate audience,
Yeah.
but we're writing sexy literature. And given how far I like to push tropes and given how much fun I like to have with those tropes, I was like, we are going to make this a necessary part of the world. And so no one can come up and say the sex was unnecessary. And so we always try to have some kind of mechanism where the relationships are either an integral part of the magic system, if not the world itself, or if they just culturally make sense. Like in Titan Mage, Locke's relationships are not tied into his magic, but there is a
Mhm.
cultural reason why the girls want to get with him. And it's just that he's a really, really rare and powerful type of mage, and they're like, "You know what? Void mage babies would be kinda good."
Oh. So it's like a breeding thing.
Yeah, and it's not like breeding is the simplest way to describe it, but the fact that Locke is a void mage is what makes him very eligible.
Okay. So he's very
And
desirable.
that is what the and that's it was there are certain elements of that story that I would have done differently, if I'd had more experience before I'd written it, because there's actually a lot of readers who really didn't like that aspect of the story,
Mhm.
because they said that because that was the way I introduced the harem aspect, it made the sex feel transactional and not tied to a genuine relationship.
Yeah.
And I totally get that. Like, in retrospect, I absolutely do. And I mean, if I ever do like a revised edition of Titan Mage, I may tweak that. Because I fully understand why readers had that kind of reaction. Now, from my perspective, I was new to the genre and I was like, okay, this is a silly series that doesn't have realistic standards. We're gonna be a little bit crazy with it. We're gonna use some different cultural standards. And there were just some things that didn't work for readers. I mean, it still became my best-selling series and still continues to be my best-selling series, so obviously it didn't bother most, but it bothered enough that it's something that I take into consideration when I design future worlds.
Yeah. And I like that you take the reader feedback and kind of implement that
Mhm.
in future books. Not a lot of
Oh, yeah.
author I mean, I don't know. I can't say not a lot of authors do that. because I don't know, but
Well,
I
there's some feedback I take with a grain of salt because the thing is, a lot of
yeah.
times the most vocal people in a fandom are also going to be the people who have really, really niche enthusiastic interests. And there's been a lot of
Mhm.
times where, an author will see people in the harem community asking for a specific kind of book on Reddit, and you'll have a really, really enthusiastic crew who are like, "Yeah, I'll read this." And that crew does read the book, but it's not nearly enough people to to make the series a success. And so you always have to be a bit wary whenever you listen to those kinds of recommendations. And so I don't take everything my readers say to heart, but if there's a change I can implement that still fits the vision of the story that I'm writing, then I will absolutely apply it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I imagine you wouldn't wanna get too niche either,
Oh yeah.
because then you'll alienate just
Yeah.
a bunch of the reader base. You are writing in the Titan Mage series still. That's still an ongoing series. Monster Girl Tamer is done with the 2 books.
Yep.
Cat Girls from Outer Space is an ongoing series.
Well, it's right now it's a standalone.
Oh, okay.
We do have plans for it to be a series. Cat Girls is a bit of an outlier in that usually when I release series, I like to release a 2 or 3 books at a time. But because of the way Cat Girls landed, like we got the rights back and we knew we could get it out quickly because I had just finished Titan Mage Havoc and so there was a
Mhm.
space. We were like, "You know what? Let's get this out." So it's not just sitting there. And so it's a standalone just because we have other projects ahead of it. We do have titles for titles and potential outlines for subsequent books. But my plan right now, we've got to get Titan Mage Havoc out of the way. There's the first series on the Edie Skye pen name where I'm actually editing book 2 right now. And so there's all those little things that are ahead of it just because of where it landed. But we do plan for it to be at least a trilogy.
Nice. And so when you are working on multiple series at one point in time, how do you, keep them all separate from each other and
Well, a lot
like,
of
get into the mindset of a specific series when you go back to writing it?
Usually when I say we're working on multiple series at a time, what it means is I am working on one series and my husband is working on another series.
Ah,
And
okay.
so either of us is like we have our own thing going at the same time. And because I have well, one of my biggest challenges as a writer is I also have 4 different types of OCD.
Hmm.
And a lot of the symptoms overlap with ADHD. And that makes focusing and staying organized tremendously challenging for me.
Oh, so much
And
fun, right?
yeah, and it's like and I have coping techniques that manage it. And I get stuff done, but I have to spend about 2 or 3 hours each day, cumulatively doing these techniques to get my brain in order. I
Mhm.
am mentally incapable of working on more than one project at a time, and often more than one thing per day. Like one of I'm sometimes people will get on to me about being really slow to respond to messages, and the reason why I am is not because I'm ignoring messages, but because I only check messages on message day. And because if otherwise my brain just goes all over the place and I can't concentrate enough to get anything done. Not to say I
Yeah.
only do it one day a week, but it's like this is message time. And I only
Yeah.
answer messages during message time. And so I tell people like if they really need an answer fast, literally just harass me and I will get you it. But that's a thing that's the OCD significantly affects my productivity, and so I have to have structures in place to manage that. Mm.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's probably for a lot of people who go into artistic career
Oh,
fields,
yeah.
is probably a norm.
Oh, absolutely. I have a lot of author friends who have OCD or ADHD or really
Mhm.
any of the gamut of anxiety disorders, and it's
Yeah.
it's very prevalent in creative spheres, to the point where I get asked for a lot of advice about how I manage because not to brag, but I am one of the most successful authors in my sphere, and people often wanna know how I do what I do, and overcoming OCD was such a tremendous struggle for me that I wanna be able to help other people through it if I can.
Yeah. Man, yeah, it's all over the place
Mhm.
in this world. I mean, even for yeah, it's even for people who aren't writers, but writer adjacent. It's
Mhm.
everywhere. So who of all of your books that you have written under the Edie Skye pen name, who has been your favorite protagonist to write? Like, who's been
Ooh.
your favorite male character to write?
You know, it's actually a minor character in the Titan Mage series. Favorite character overall. There's someone you'll encounter in books 2 on of Titan Mage, and his name is Sevas Lazar. And he's this amusing engineer, and he is one of the few he's one of the few characters in the setting who doesn't necessarily follow harem rules, because he is disabled and suffers from chronic pain. He's got a leg brace and crutch and whatnot, and he was a really interesting character to write in his context because his struggles are different from the main character's struggles. And, being able to write a one of the fun challenges of his character was writing a character who had realistic struggles related to chronic pain and related to his disability,
Hmm.
while also getting to be an adventure-worthy badass. He is one of the main characters in Titan Mage Havoc. In fact, the main reason Titan Mage Havoc exists is because I wanted to tell his story, even though he's not the main character in it. The main character is his basically brother in all but blood, Ryan,
Right.
and he is the more conventional action adventure hero. But it was just really, really fun getting to explore that type of character um, in that type of series. Now, in terms of the main characters, it's tough because they're all so different. And I loved writing them all, genuinely, but, I'm honestly gonna have to say Axel, because the thing about Axel is he was one of the few characters where because of the comedic nature of his story, I got to let him make mistakes. I
Yeah.
got to let him struggle and have these moments where he's not he wants to be the hyper competent hero, but his circumstances are so weird that he's like, "What do I do with this?"
Yeah. He was also so like, I don't want to say innocent, but kind of innocent.
Yeah,
Like,
well, his
he'd
whole
never
family.
dated anyone
Yeah,
before. He
yeah, he's
played
and
video games and tabletop games and
yeah.
like lived in his parents' basement, but like was like a badass at the same time.
Yeah,
That's
like
just
he
very
was
innocent.
trained for herodom, and the thing is,
Yeah.
he was well intentioned. Like the reason he didn't want a girlfriend is because he knew that someone in his family was likely going to be the chosen one, and there was a chance
Yeah.
that it could be him, and he didn't want to endanger someone else. Like he was going to wait until after the chosen one thing had passed, and if it wasn't him, get a girlfriend then. But it's like now he's got his destiny, and his destiny is to date monster girls, but he's never even dated human girls, and it's like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And
He goes from dating
he
no one to
yeah,
having to date all these people.
and not only having to date them, but having to teach them how to use these new, like, sentient intellects that they have, because the monster
Yeah.
girls are accustomed to being monsters, like, they're not accustomed to having complex human-like thoughts,
Yeah.
and so he's
It's
not
even
only
worse.
gotta date them, he's gotta get them introduced to society and teach them that there's a difference between murder and eating.
Yeah. Yeah, he has to teach them all to be civil.
Yes.
Like, we don't lick each other in front of people.
Yes, precisely.
No
But yeah,
licking.
he was my favorite just because I was able to do different things with him. But in truth, like there's not a single character I dislike. And like even the bad guys I love writing because it's so many of my bad guys are so deliciously evil. And and those are fun to write too.
Nice. Who has been your favorite, uh, harem member?
Ooh, there's even more of those to choose
I
from.
know. I know.
I
There's a lot of them.
Sloane from Titan Mage. And so for those who haven't read Titan Mage, she is the cat girl of the group. And the reason why she is my favorite is because her story evolved as I was writing in a way that I did not expect. Um, because Titan Mage Rising, her book, is ultimately a kidnapping story And when my husband gave me this outline, he did not know that kidnapping stories are actually one of my least favorite tropes.
Hmm.
I cannot stand action adventure where the entire point is to, oh, the main character has a girl. Oh, she's been captured and is off screen for most of the book or whatever. And so I was like, I need to do something to make myself like this style of story. And her, she ended up having a really unexpected familial relationship with another character, or familial history with another character in that book, and ended up developing a really, really touching and affecting story that is it ultimately becomes a story of Locke helping her through past trauma, which is not something you would expect of a story where a cat girl is on the front cover.
No.
And it was, and not to say that it was dark or anything, but it was definitely an unexpectedly mature story for the kind of outline that we had. And so I love her character, but I especially love the way in which she surprised me as I was writing her story.
Nice. So if the kidnap trope is your least favorite, what would your favorite trope be?
Oh man.
Or do you have a favorite? It's okay if you don't. That there's
I
I mean, there's a lot of tropes out there.
I don't know that I necessarily have a absolutely this is my favorite overwhelming trope. I mean, I love heroic main characters. Like I love characters who are the straightforward good guy who they have their beliefs and they stick to them.
Mhm.
Um, but I also like I really love, and this isn't so much a trope so much as a characteristic, but I really love sassy, sexy banter. If a story does not have banter in it, I don't
Yeah.
care. And that's one of the things that draws me to action adventure too, because there's like t crazy banter and to a certain extent, like, cheesy but also really badass puns. I
Oh,
love
I
me some
love
puns.
puns.
Like, I love puns, and I fit I will try to I'm never I don't like obvious puns where it's like, ugh, but I really, really love plays on words in general,
Mhm.
and you'll find a lot of puns woven into the very structure of my story, or of a lot of my stories. And for example, one of the ones that I'm proudest of is in Titan Mage Dragon. And I came a point there came a point in the series where I wanted to have some kind of backstory explaining the dragons in this setting because they're not very common, and I mean it's dragons are cool and you want to have some cool stuff with them.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that's involved in the Titan Mage series is this failed civilization. Like it's 1,000 years old. They don't know what happened to it, but it was this massively powerful, hyper advanced magical situation that suddenly fell and there are artifacts of it left all over the place. The
Mhm.
main character is privy to information about this civilization because one of the people who eventually joins his harem is like from that civilization and preserved inside his
Ooh.
mech. Um, and so there comes a point where she tells him the history of the dragons. And I was like, you know what? This planet has been this the planet of Haven has effectively been settled by the precursors um on the run from something. And they probably terraformed it beforehand because, that's just what those things do. And
Mhm.
I'm into gardening and I'm like, you know what? Worms do stuff to dirt. Like they make dirt healthy. And worm is another way of describing a dragon. What if the dragons are
Oh.
basically magical terraformers? And that entire and the dragons therefore became the source of magic on all of Haven. You have areas where,
I like it.
um, if the area has a dragon, it's rich in magic. If the dragon has died, that area has no magic, and it's kind of a ghost area. And its magic returns whenever a dragon comes and lives there. And that it's one of the coolest parts of the world, and it entirely happened because I wanted to make a pun on worm.
Yeah. 'Cause, it's WORM and
Yeah,
WYRM.
yeah.
I love it. I actually really like that idea. I didn't realize the Titan Mage had dragons in it.
Oh yeah. Well, that book
So
3 is called Titan Mage Dragon.
I have 1 and 2.
Oh, yeah, well,
But
that would
I'm
explain it then.
definitely bumping, Titan Mage up my TBR now because I love a good story that involves a
Yeah,
dragon.
it's one of those elements of the world where certain things I reveal in a slow trickle with Titan Mage. So
Mhm.
Titan Mage 1 is probably the simplest of really it's probably the simplest story on my entire pen name. because I was not only getting used to the world, I was getting used to writing harem. And so we intentionally kept the story very straightforward, very streamlined. By the end of Titan Mage 1, I felt comfortable inside the world, and so in Titan Mage 2, I became a little more exploratory. And even then it's still very, very narrow. Like it affects this one archaeological ruin that they're exploring through, and they're like mimics and all sorts of stuff. But I did a little bit more world exploration. Titan Mage Dragon was where I just went ham. And so you learn a whole bunch about the world. Like the book, it explodes. Like Titan Mage Ruin is like this big. Titan Mage Dragon is this big. It's huge.
So now you're taking a foray into woman's woman's romance.
Yeah.
Have you is anything about that book public yet, or
Oh yeah,
is it all
it's up
pretty
for pre-order on Amazon. It's
what's
so
what's that one
so
called?
the series is called The Dark Infernals, and the first book is called Into the Arms of the Demon.
That's right.
And the author name is Edie Skye. So we wanted to make it clear that it was still sort of in the same, like, it's the same brand.
Mhm.
But we had considered releasing it under Edie Skye, but one of the things about it is that men's romance and women's romance have completely different structures. I mean, we've touched on this, and there was enough difference in this one that we were like, you know what, this just needs its own pen name. I mean, first off, my Edie Skye stuff is exclusively bright and happy and fun. And Into the Arms of the Demon is a dark romance. The main character goes through some stuff. There are trigger warnings that are partly advertisement, but also like if you don't want to encounter this wild stuff, don't read this book. And another of the reasons why we established it is because like we've had people asking for spicier, crazier things.
Mhm.
Um, but because it doesn't sell in harem, like it was just not possible to do it.
Yeah.
However, in on the Arcadia Sky pen name, where we are basically taking the tropes that overlap with men's and women's romance, and we are bringing the things over that people love about Edie Skye, and tweaking some of the things to fit women's romance more. The relationships are, while they're still supportive, they're a lot more convoluted and complicated. There's
Mhm.
more drama.
Yeah.
The spicy bits are crazier, and the tone is a little bit darker. And not everything on this pen name will be dark romance. In fact, I actually have some stuff set in the Titan Mage universe planned for it once we get this first series out of the way. But it's just there were enough differences that that we felt it was best suited to another, just a brand new pen name.
What is a monster that you would never turn into a monster girl? Is there anything that's just too weird, too stereotypical, too gross? I don't know.
That requires something. Well, the thing is, I took a monster named the Raging Butt Lord and turned it into a monster girl in book two.
I
So
know, but
there's
was it
kind of
what kind of
so
monster
so
was that?
so the Raging Butt Lord is a is a monster that shows up in Monster Punk Horizon. And the joke with this monster is it has this dinosaur like look. It's this kind of saurian thing, but its defining feature is that it just has this really really disturbingly distinctively sumptuous human looking butt. And Monster Punk Horizon is this absurd series. Like it's that kind of thing is not out of place. And but the joke with the Raging Butt Lord was that there's Monster Punk Horizon is heavily inspired by the Monster Hunter games, and so, you know, there's a
Mhm.
society that goes and researches monsters and whatnot, and this particular monster, was new, and they needed a name for it, and the serious people had a name that they wanted to apply to it, but the hunters are a bunch of goofballs, and they all voted, and the Raging Buttlord was the name that won. And the description of this monster in that book is hilarious. And I wrote this before Monster Girl Tamer was even a thing that I considered. But then when I sat down to plan Monster Girl Tamer, I was like, there is no way I can write this sexy harem book and not have a raging buttlord monster girl with the way I described that monster's butt. And so one
True.
of the bad guys that shows up in book 2, is a transformed raging buttlord monster girl, and she is, like, buff, she is thick. She's like a barbarian, and
Nice.
she was one of my favorite characters to write because, astonishingly, she ends up having a really touching story as well, which that happens with me, like, I some of my most unexpected characters have some of the best stories.
That's
But in
awesome.
terms of anything that is too disgusting or anything, like, I don't really think anything is off limits in that universe because the thing is, if someone tells me, like, if someone were to bring a monster to me and say, "Hey, there's no way this could be a monster girl," my brain will immediately go,
Oh, yeah?
I wonder if I can find a way to make this story work. Because one of my favorite things to do in writing in general is to take really stupid ideas and make them function. Like
I
one of the
love that.
defining characteristics of The Wizard's Way, for example, was the Wizard's Way is a young adult steampunk story about a young wizard who has to team up with a sword fighting pug butler to solve a murder mystery. And the pug butler was not in my original plan, but there came a point where I was just stuck on a scene and I was like, "You know what? I like pugs. I like sword fighting, and I really like this scene could benefit from a sword fighting pug butler. Let's just see what happens." And he ended up becoming one of the single best characters in the novel. Like he is to this day one of my favorite characters. I really really appreciate the challenge of taking an idea that shouldn't work and making it work.
That's hilarious. I guess that's one of the benefits of being a pantser, though, is that you can
Mhm.
pivot like that when you're writing a story and
Oh
you're
yeah.
like, "Oh, you know what? This scene really needs this." And then
Yeah.
it can become like an integral part of
Yeah, and
later stories
I
and the rest
still
of the series.
do I do a variant of that even today, like, what I do now to keep my writing a little more under control. So I have my outline, and I let my characters and world do whatever, but I have certain restrictions that I work
Mm,
within, and for example, I one of my rules is that if it takes more than X number of sentences to explain this thing, it's too complicated for the story or it risks overcomplicating the world too much.
right.
And so if I can't fit the explanation in that small space, I don't use it. Mm.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, that keeps you from just going too
Oh, yeah.
crazy.
And because going too crazy is one of the reasons why the sequel to The Wizard's Way never happened. And so, well, I mean, I've got 200,000 words of it, but it's not finished. And
At
that's
200,000?
yeah, yeah, it was this novel was written before I was diagnosed with OCD.
Oh.
And now that I look at it from the lens of how OCD affects my writing, I can absolutely see where the flaws are. And unfortunately, there are enough flaws in it that it can't be fixed. Um,
Mm,
but eh, but one of the good things too is that one of the benefits of the Arcadia Sky pen name is I reread The Wizard's Way recently and went, you know what? I could rewrite 50% of this and turn it into a romantasy. And so one of my projects, once I have time, is gonna be to take that and rewrite parts of it and bring it up to my current skill level, bring it up to, make it more suited to an action adventure romantasy, and then re-release it and continue the series. Because I like I have readers who have been with me from the beginning who love that book. But at this point, the HP Hollow pen name has fallen by the wayside because of the Edie Skye pen name. Like I can barely keep up with Edie Skye right now. Like I've got so many projects going on between Titan Mage Havoc and Into the Arms of the Demon and 2 different special editions that we're working on, and
oh,
I also
wow.
just went TikTok viral and sold out of all my stuff on TikTok Shop, and I'm to the point where I am actually coordinating a traditional size print run of some of my books now. It's like I can't
Ooh.
complain, but yeah, a lot of good stuff happened at once, and I am tired. But but it's been an adventure.
That's
Mm.
awesome,
Oh,
though.
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
awesome. So
I
but it's good to know that you can, at some point, that it's not impossible for you to go back and kind of rewrite it in
oh, yeah,
the
and
romantasy
it's
genre.
I actually it's parts of it have like, it's been re-outlined for years, but not I wanna say about, not years, but, like, 1 or 2 years, but other projects have just gotten in the way, and which is the story of my life. Like, I have so many projects that I want to get to that if I just had a month, I could finish them, but I don't have a month because
Yeah.
all these things are happening.
Yeah.
Um,
Are you gonna be at any conventions this year?
Jacob and I are actually going to be masters of ceremony at LibertyCon in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I think that's in late June, I believe. I can't recall the dates off the top of my head. We have applied to be guests at LitRPGCon, but haven't heard back. So once we hear back, hopefully we will be guests. We are tentatively planning to do LitRPGCon. But we have a low con schedule this year just because I started this year intending to get into Kickstarters and special editions, and so that's a lot of research, a lot of coordination, and
Yeah.
and I love cons. Like I love going to hang out with readers, but they are also disruptions to every single bit of the writing process. And so
Yeah.
we're just like, let's take a year, let's get at least 2 special editions done, and then we can start going to cons because then we can like have those to take.
Oh, and that would be exciting.
Oh yeah, and they're gonna be gorgeous too. We've got we're just printing outright a special edition of Titan Mage Havoc and the Frigid Flame, and then we're gonna be doing our first Kickstarter for Cat Girls from Outer Space. And
Nice.
these both are still in coordination. Like I have gotten so behind on everything. Like these were both supposed to be done a month ago, but then my TikTok success hit right before Christmas, and I have been shipping boxes so much that my post office, like my local post office, they either love me or they hate me, and they're not I can't figure out which one it is, but they're like, "Can you just do you just wanna buy a PO box here? Because 'Cause you're here all the time anyway." And
It's a good problem to
so
have.
oh, yeah, it's an excellent problem to have, but it's also put me, like, a month late on everything.
Yeah.
So but I can't complain. It's been really fun. And I found one of the fun things about this particular video that went viral is there are a lot of men who have been the video that went viral was a video about the differences between men's romance and women's romance. And
Mhm, I remember that
and
video.
oh yeah, yeah. Well, you're on TikTok too. Of course you've seen it. but the there's a stereotype that men don't like reading romance. And what it is, it's not that men don't like reading romance. It's that men have a different standard for the kind of romance they want to read.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons why that video went so viral and why I've gotten so many readers off of it is because there are a whole lot of men in the comments who were like, I've been looking for something like this forever, but I didn't realize it was its own genre." And it gets even more confusing for men's romance because men's romance is not called men's romance. Men's romance is called men's adventure because of the stereotype that men won't read romance. And
Oh, and
and
that's such a
and
shame.
well, it's and I fully understand why. Like adventure is
Yeah.
more appealing to even me. Like I'm gonna read an adventure before I read a romance.
Same.
But it's the problem for people who are trying to discover it is that men's romance gets buried in men's adventure, and you don't necessarily know that that's where romance is because what about men's adventure suggests a romance except for the
Right.
middle of the cover. And but it's been really cool to apparently have introduced this massive corner of TikTok to a genre they'd been looking for but didn't know existed.
That's
And
awesome.
I mean it's been wild, and it's really funny to me because I used to be a teacher, and this was before I even read romance at all. And as a teacher, you really want to get kids to love reading. Like literacy scores are dropping, people don't
Mhm.
read as much for fun anymore. And I think I have done more for literacy by writing smut than I did as a teacher.
I love
And
it.
because like and I tried to pick fun books for my kids to read that would get them excited
Yeah.
about reading, but it's school, the teacher is recommending it. I have a ton of readers who come to me and say they don't enjoy reading, but they enjoyed my book and now they're reading more of this nature, or it even inspired them to write their own. And I'm just
Oh,
like I am accomplishing the thing
oh,
I set out to do in college in a
that's
very
fantastic.
unexpected way. And it's just yeah, it's been a really interesting experience, and also just figuring out one of the things I did not expect about the harem readership in general is how wholesome it is.
They really
Because
are.
yeah, they are like as a woman, as a conspicuous woman writing for a male dominated fandom, I fully expected to get an uncomfortable DM at some point.
At least a
And
couple. Yeah.
oh yeah, and the crazy thing is that I have been writing under this pen name for 3 years and not received a single uncomfortable message. every single message that I've gotten has been to the extent of telling me that they didn't enjoy reading and now they do, or
Oh, I
asking
love that
me
so much.
for asking me for stats or world maps. Like my readers are really into world maps to the point where I absolutely have to produce one now. Like they will not let me not have a world map. And so I've painted one for Titan Mage, and then I'm doing an expanded one for Titan Mage Havoc. And it's just it's really really like delightful how how completely uncreepy the
Yeah.
readership is.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love them. Like, and meeting them at cons, like, because I was nervous the first time I went to a con as Edie Skye, but, like, a lot of my readers, like, it turns out that they also like, they've introduced their wives to the books or their girlfriends, and their girlfriends will be bigger fans of me than they are, even though the man read me first. Like, it's which, I mean, women, we love some smut anyway. Like, it's of
Yes.
course, you're gonna like it, but it's
Yeah.
just that dynamic is a really, really interesting part of this readership.
I mean, and that's something that you would never even
Oh, never. Well,
imagine.
there's a stereotype that people who enjoy sexual entertainment are pervs. I mean, when it comes down to it. And
Yeah.
I think that I mean, honestly, one of the biggest problems I have with American culture in general is how dysfunctional it is with regards to sex. There's actually another video I made about the difference between men's and women's romance, and one of my theories about why women's romance is as crazy as it is because in American society in particular, as a woman, you're either 100% pure or you're on OnlyFans, and there's
Yeah.
no middle perception, and because of that, pretty much the only safe place women have to explore ideas of sexuality, because they certainly can't explore it publicly, are in the privacy of books.
Mhm.
And I mean, the romance genre has been the bestseller for decades, and so genres evolve. People find new things that turn them on, and whatnot.
Yeah.
Um, but it frustrates me that our culture doesn't talk intelligently about the deep, meaningful details of sexual relationships. And one of the things that has been enormously gratifying for me is that, at least amongst small circles, the fact that I write both men's romance and women's romance, and therefore are introducing some concepts of the differences between them and how both of them think, my readers are beginning to ask those questions and beginning to have more genuine discussions about it and developing healthier relationships because of it. And that's really important to me. Sex is such a key part of relationships, and no one is prepared for it when you
Yeah.
enter a serious relationship because we don't ever talk about it in a meaningful way.
Yeah,
And
it's always something that needs to be shoved under a rug
yeah,
or kept secret or, yo, it's inappropriate.
yeah. And the funny thing too is, like, even amongst women's like when you get a women's book club, even when they discuss the content amongst themselves, it's always in a tee hee, did you read page 35? Like, it's
Mhm.
even then it's kind of shy. And not to say you should talk
Yeah.
about this disgusting stuff in public all the time, but it's a really, really fascinating and frustrating element of our culture for me.
Yeah, it's surprising how big the harem genre is starting to get.
But yeah.
On TikTok, even my best video that I've done was my review of a harem book.
Mhm.
And it was one of the I think it was probably one of the first videos that I did. And it still gets comments and likes and
Neat.
saves. And I'm like, this is wild.
Oh, I have theories about why harem has suddenly risen too. Because I mean, there's some variant of men's romance has always been around because, I mean, Clive Cussler's been writing forever, or before he died, he'd been writing forever. And there's like, even if you go back as far as his first book, I wouldn't consider it a men's romance, but there's definitely they're the kernels of the men's romance genre in there.
Hmm.
And the thing about it is, harem has been building for about the past 10 to 15 years.
One more question that I always end my um, interviews on. If you had one stat or ability that would be your main, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. What's really astonishing is that even though I write lit RPG, I've never actually thought about this. This is hard. I'm just gonna limit myself to the basic D&D stats,
That's what I did too.
and I think I would want my main to be oh my goodness, I don't even know. Strength, to be honest, because I am not a buff person, and whenever I play video games, I always play the buffest barbarian I possibly can. Like,
I do too.
I really wanna be able to go, like, lift rocks and chunk them at things, like big rocks, not little
Yeah.
rocks. But, yeah, I just that's part of my self-insert fantasy self-insert is the wrong term. Part of my fantasy is just being super ripped. So, it's gonna be strength.
Keep going to the gym.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which funny
mine
story, I've started going to the gym recently, and I've actually started putting on a little bit of muscle, but I discovered I've started putting on muscle in the winter, and I've discovered that my shoulders have, like, begun to get swole. Not swole enough that that I look buff, but just big enough that I can't fit any of my winter coats now.
Oh, no.
Like, just enough, and it's just so it's like I'm definitely upping my strength stat, but it's like now I have to replace all of my favorite coats because I can't fit
Oh,
any.
no. That's the worst.
But it's also really nice actually having muscle definition. "Oh, there's actually
Ah,
more
get
muscle."
it.
Yeah.
Get it. I love it. Yeah. No, I'm lifting weights all the time. I love it.
Mhm.
I will lift weights any day over doing cardio.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Like, you don't
the
sweat as
worst.
much doing it, but it's ultimately more productive, and you can go slower at it. Like, I find lifting weights relaxing.
I do too. And you know, the more muscle I put on, the more calories my
Yep.
body burns, so the more fat I'll lose anyway.
Yeah.
So, win-win.
Yeah, it's more effective all the way around.
Yeah. That's what I keep telling myself.
I do love a good Zumba though. Like, I love my little Zumba classes. I just love to wiggle.
I
I
know.
don't even care if I get the moves right. I figure if I'm sweating, I'm good.
Yeah, who cares? Just have fun with it. As long
Yep.
as it's fun,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like as long as it's fun, it doesn't matter. Thank you so much, Edie Skye, for coming on and hanging out with me. Thank you, everybody else, for sticking around. Thank you to my editor, Jennifer. I appreciate all the work you do. Where can we find you, Edie?
Well, you can find me at edieskye.com and arcadiasky.com whenever that gets up. And I'm literally just getting all of my stuff set up. But as far as social media goes, I'm on TikTok as Edie Skye author. Also Instagram, also Facebook, same thing, Edie Skye author. I'm also on Twitter, but I don't ever use it. But the best place to find me right now is TikTok because that's kind of where I live. So,
Perfect. I will link to your socials in the description of the video.
oh, I
I
forgot to
almost
plug my
said
Patreon
comment.
too. Yes, I have a Patreon as well, which is also at Edie Skye Author. So it's I'm currently posting my Arcadia Sky stuff right there, but there's also the complete version of Titan Mage Havoc up as well. So if you want to read that before it comes out in March, you can do that there, or you can do it on Royal Road. And yeah, I
Perfect. I'll link to everything.
oh yeah,
I will link to all of it. You can, as usual, find me on the web at iowpod.com. You can find me on YouTube at IOW Podcast. Those are my two main platforms. I will link to everything else in the description of the video. Thank you for sticking around and keep leveling up.